welcome back to Lex Reads. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about books that I DNF. And when I was going through my list, I realized that I didn't have a lot of books that I DNF because at one point, like when I first got into reading a couple years ago, I would just suffer through. I would not DNF a book because I almost felt like, not a failure, it's not that dramatic, but it made me feel some type of way, like I just didn't accomplish something that simple as reading a book. But y'all know, reading a book, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of patience. Okay, when you just think about it, you want to read a book, you have to find the time, also the energy, what else, the headspace. Again, it takes a lot of patience to sit down and read a book. And this year was the first year that I like DNF a lot of books, and I was like, no shame in my game, because again, this is a hobby and I don't want it to feel like a chore or feel strenuous, you know what I mean? And then it's not that deep. If you don't like the book, you don't like the book. So let's just get started. Okay, the first one is Here Comes the Sun by Nicole Dennis Benn. Now, the reason why I actually DNF'd this book, I just wasn't in the right headspace. It was on my TBR, I want to say 2021, and got through a good amount, and then I just like DNF'd it clearly. And I picked up her second book, Patsy, and absolutely adored it, okay? And I was like, you got to give this a try, because the fact this book it's up my alley, okay? It really is. But again, I just wasn't in the right headspace, and I'm sometimes can be a mood reader, and I'm like, you know what, let me put this down and I'll pick it back up, and I never did. So for this, I actually do have intentions on picking it back up. When, I don't know, but yeah. Next is, oh Lord, a book that it was on my TBR list for this year called You Truly Assume by Layla Sabrine. And this actually is a YA book. It was the author's debut novel. And first, what got me was the cover. I mean, look how beautiful this cover is. And then when I was reading synopsis, I'm like, you know what? I think I might like this. Because sometimes I'd be on kicks where I will like read a YA book and then want to read another one by another author, and that was the situation about this book. It's about three young girls. They live in like separate states and things like that. They're all Muslim, and one day it's like a terrorist attack, and because they're Muslim, people like, you know, assume things about them and target them, and these girls end up coming up or creating a blog about just the woes and the pros and cons of being Muslim in America and everything like that. I tried to read this 3 times and it just didn't do anything for me. So yeah, yeah, that's all I can say. Next, this was also on my TBR for this year, and it was called Jam on the Vine by LaShonda Katrina, what is it? Barnett. Yeah. And this actually is another one that's up my alley. It's about a young girl named, is it Ivo? And it's during like, not the Reconstruction, 19, yeah. And it was talking about the Red Summer, which was a, what was it, like a massacre where millions of black people were, thousands of black people were killed. But the young girl, she wants to be a journalist or a writer, and I think she ends up like working for the first, what is it, the first newspaper that's ran by like a black woman, I believe. But for some reason, like the story, that's up my alley, y'all, because y'all know I love historical fiction, and like I love books about writers and books about books. Excuse me. But this, it was lightweight boring. It honestly was. And while I was reading it, I was trying to get to it, and I kept on saying in my mind, girl, this is something you like. This is something you like. It was so laborious. I'm like, I'm not suffering through this, because again, I want to get through my TBR. Didn't finish it. If I'm being honest, I don't think I am going to finish this. And then, oh, I got some tea on her a couple months ago, where this author, I think this is the author's debut novel. Why was this author in real life dining and dashing in the Hamptons. I'm like, girl, you can't be that stupid. First of all, y'all know in Hamptons, ain't a lot of black people up there. And you go dine and dash where we're already sparse. I thought that was the stupidest thing ever. I'm like, why is she dining and dashing? It was so funny because during a time when I was reading this book, I came across that article because I was looking up more information about her, and that came up. I was like, oh, Lord, the tea. So, yeah. Next is Everybody Looking by Candace Aho. I believe she's Nigerian. And this is a YA book. And first of all, the cover is amazing. And I think this is about a girl. Her name's Ida. She's home for her freshman year at a historical black college. And I guess you learn about, but you see like her experiences during college. It's written like in poetry form. I know I wasn't in the right headspace for this, and I just picked it up on a like whim, and clearly it didn't finish, and I didn't finish it. You know, me and YAs, we have a love-hate relationship. Maybe I might pick it up, I don't know, but the cover is just so pretty. Yeah. Next is The Perishing by Natasha Dion. Now, I also got through a good amount of this book, and yeah. The reason why I want to get this is because I read Natasha Dion's first book, Grace, and it was unbelievable. I was like, after reading that, I'm like, anything that she comes up with, I'm getting. So when her sophomore book came out, went and got it like the first day it came out, and was highly disappointed. What is this even about? Okay, because it's been like almost 2 years. So a black woman wakes up in an alley in 1930 Los Angeles with no memory of how she got there and where she's from. Taken in by a caring foster family, Lou dedicates herself to her education while trying to put her mystery origins behind her. Okay. I don't remember none of this. When she befriends a firefighter at a downtown boxing gym, Lou is shocked to realize that though she has no memory of meeting him, she's been drawing his face for years. Yeah, I don't remember any of this because again, I halfway read this almost 2 years ago. One thing I do remember, it was kind of confusing. I do remember that. Okay, next is The Romanov Sisters by Helen Rappaport. And I remember I got into this because and wanted to learn more about the Romanovs after I saw a docu-series on Netflix, and that was back during the pandemic when, you know, we couldn't go nowhere. And for me, during the pandemic, I switched jobs. So for like a couple of months, I didn't have a job. 3 months, I was just sitting at home, watching TV, reading. That was it. And I had watched that docu-series, and just was flabbergasted because I didn't know, I just knew bits and pieces of the Romanovs. If I'm being honest, I just knew a little bit about Anastasia because she's the one that's, you know, always talked about. But I didn't know anything about, you know, their monarchy and their father, how he was like a weak leader and everything. And you know how there was talk about how like Anastasia was still alive and all that. That's impossible because the way that they killed them was execution style. So no one got out of the room. So there's no way that she would be alive. Watching that, I ended up getting this book. I remember for like half off and was reading a little bit of it. And y'all know like nonfiction, oh Lord, I have to really want to read the book. And again, I get on these little kicks where if I learn about something, I'll get all the information. And then move on to something else. So that's what I did with this. Right now, I don't think I'm gonna pick this back up. Yeah, but I am glad that I have it because I never know, I might want to learn a little bit more about them. But yeah. Next is The Island Queen by Vanessa Riley. And I can't even tell you why I DNF this book. This actually was on my TBR for, I think, last year. And she has, 2 other books that came out because this is her debut novel. And I got to page 56. Yeah, I got to page 56. And DNF'd it. and I really do not know why. This is one book where I think I am going to pick it back up. And the crazy thing about this, the publisher sent this to me, and I was so excited because it's historical fiction, and love historical fiction. Also, too, Sadiqa Johnson, who was one of my favorite authors, have blurbed the book, and I'm like, okay, she likes it, then I'm gonna read it. So yeah, I got to get back on this. This is a book that I will probably pick up. Next, Lord, Ta-Nehisi Coates, The Water Dancer. This was on everybody's radar when it came out, okay, because it was like the first book connected to Apple, or what? No, didn't Oprah like partner with Apple, and it was like the first book that like her and Apple partnered together. So of course, you know, everybody wanted to get on the bandwagon. And then this was a big deal because, you know, Ta-Nehisi Coates, he writes nonfiction, you know, brilliant nonfiction writer. In this case, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Some authors, they can write nonfiction and fiction. He is one that cannot. This was so confusing, and it's a slave narrative, but girl. And then when you realize it too, and think about it, y'all. You remember how everybody named Mama was posting this on Instagram? I mean, she had all the celebrities posting on it, you know, because she was giving a book. So hey, especially on OWN Network, everybody that had a show on OWN Network, they had this book on their feeds. But I'm like, y'all just taking a picture of this book. Y'all ain't reading it, because tell me how many people reviewed this book. Crickets, right? Exactly. They weren't reading this book, okay? Again, they were just promoting it because it's obviously Oprah. Now, this 2019 is the last time I picked this book up. And I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I'm not gonna pick this book back up. Because again, it was just so confusing. And it's crazy because I love slave narratives. But Herman, or whatever his name was, no ma'am. This was a no ma'am. So, I mean, I can say, well, you got a first edition. But if I'm also being honest, some books that Oprah has on her book list, her book club list, it don't really do nothing for me. It honestly doesn't, okay? Some of the books that she had back in the 90s when it first started, I'm like, oh, okay. But I don't follow her book club, if I'm being honest. Next is another Oprah book club pick that came out in 2021, but I had it on my TBR last year, which is The Sweetness of Water by Nathan Harris. And this also was a slave narrative, and didn't like it. Didn't do nothing for me. Again, was boring. I think you have two young men, they're brothers, they escaped from slavery, and you have a young white couple, their son has been murdered during the war, I believe it was Civil War, and it looks like, I think they might take them in or something like that. Another Oprah pick that didn't do nothing for me. You know, I'm glad that they got their money. I'm glad that the authors got, you know, got their coins, and it was on bestseller, but this didn't do anything for me. And then lastly is How Beautiful We Were by Mbola Mbue. I wanted to read this because her first debut novel, Behold the Dreamers, which actually was on Oprah's book club pick, and that was a good job. She did a good job with that one. So I'm like, after reading that, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm reading everything by her. And she is an African writer, Cameroon, I believe. And this is about a fictional African village that their water is being, what do you call it? Contaminated. And yeah, that's all I can tell you. I don't even know what page I got to this. Yeah. And it just, again, it wasn't catching me. It honestly wasn't. And it's not that the writing is boring, or it's not that the writing is horrible, because she does not write horribly. Like, Mbola Mbue can write, okay? And her descriptions are unmatched. But this story just was not grabbing me, and it actually was kind of painful for me to read, and I'm like, So yeah, guys, that's it when it comes to the books that I DNF. Although these books, like two of these books I said I'm gonna try again, The Island Queen and Here Comes the Sun. All the rest of them, no ma'am. But if I DNF a book, I don't get rid of them, because I am a book collector, and it's like I don't want to get rid of it. So they literally just, they're on my shelves, you know, displayed or whatever. Because that's another thing too. It's hard for me to part with books. I have to like not like it at all. Like, can't stand it in order for me to part with the books. But again, since this is a hobby of mine and it's, you know, I'm a collector, so I keep them. So yeah, guys, that's all I have, and I'll be back with more Black books. Bye.